In this video, I'm going to make an observational drawing of this can. What I mean by that is I've got this 3D object in front of me, and while I'm observing it, I'm going to draw it. In this drawing, this will be different than my previous videos where we did a contour and a blind contour. I'm still going to be studying the object and really paying attention to the directions of the lines and how big things are compared to other things from my viewpoint. But I'm going to be erasing lines and redrawing them and making structure lines. And I'm going to talk you through it as I do it so you know what I'm doing. I'm going to set it out in front of me. And I'm going to choose an area to start with, like a certain shape that I want to lock in and get as correct as I think I can. And then build from that shape. So I'm going to start with the silver top of the can, which is wonky because it's not like a true ellipse. An ellipse, for those of you that need a review, that's when you have when you have a shape like an oval where an object has a circle on one end, but based on your viewpoint, it changes the shape of that circle. So it's not a true ellipse because it's been crushed. So I got to figure out about how that's going to work. But I'm going to start by just sort of drawing that shape in there about the right size. And before I draw it more permanently, kind of making it darker, I want to make sure the size is okay. So if I'm looking at the size of this shape and I'm trying to visually measure it, it looks to me like the distance from here to here, and there may be some human error here, but it looks like the distance from here to here, if I multiply that by 2, so if I do this 1, 2, and add maybe a little bit, that's where the bottom of the can will be. It looks to me that it's a little bit more than 2 of these from here to the bottom of the can from here. So if this shape is this tall, then I can kind of find where the bottom is. So let me get this shape locked in a little bit more permanently so I feel better about it. And then I'll figure out where the bottom of the can is. I just wanted to make sure if I do 1, 2 of these, yes, it will fit. If I had drawn it like this big, no, it wouldn't fit at the bottom of the paper. So that's why I drew it lightly. Now I'm gonna lock it in more permanently. Really pay attention to what those angles are doing as they curve and turn. And I'm kind of following what I do when I do a blind contour, meaning I'm following this edge with my eye and looking back and forth and trying to match my hand do what my eye is seeing. I'm trying not to depend on what I think it looks like, because then I would end up drawing an ellipse more like this or a more true ellipse. Okay, so if I feel good about this shape, from here to here, I think 2 of those. So I'm going to lay down my pencil, mark my finger at the end of that. I'm going to say 1, 2, and a little bit more is about where I think the bottom of this can will be. So if that's right, that's about where the bottom will be. I'm going to draw a vertical line through here. Now, if this can were not crushed, it would probably be fairly essential for me to draw this vertical line because it would help me keep everything symmetrical. This can is not symmetrical anymore, but it might help me figure out how far things bend if I have a true vertical in the middle. All right, now I'm going to look at this side first. So I see that it curves out and then it comes back in. So there's a few things that I have to figure out. I have to figure out, where does it curve back? Does it curve back down here? Does it go all the way down here before it makes that curve? Does it make that curve up here? And wherever I choose that, it's possible that I will make a little bit of human error, which will throw everything else off a little bit. So I have to think about all these decisions and make them carefully. So first I'm going to decide, where does this line come out of? It comes out of the oval, probably a little right about here, right about when this starts curving more straight down is where this line comes out. And it kind of goes on an angle like this. Now, if I draw a straight line underneath here to see where it hits before it goes under. I'm thinking right about here. So if this curves down to here, right about here is where it's going to start making that angle in. And that angle is kind of, looks like it's about there. And this starts curving down probably around here. All right, let's look at this side. So this side, it comes out, if I'm comparing this to the other side, if I draw a straight line across here, this starts coming out a little lower than it does on that side. So I'm going to start it down here. And then this is about where this line starts. And it's not a true vertical. It looks like it's close. It looks like it may come in a little bit and then start bending back out. And then this also goes back in, but it goes back in lower down here than it does up here. And I'm trying to figure out if I were to draw a straight line across to where that bend is, maybe hits it right about there. So this line's going to go all the way down to here before it starts making its way back in. All right, I'm going to erase this vertical line because it's kind of throwing me off now. All right, now I'm going to put in the part where you drink out of. So if I'm looking at, actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to put this line in first because that's going to break that space up a little bit. All right, now I'm going to put in where that part is that you drink out of. So I'm looking at where everything is in comparison to each other. So if I draw a diagonal line from here to here, that's about where this curve stops right here and starts going this way. This comes about this far. And then maybe curves around here. And then we've got this little tab. And this is because I'm a weirdo and I always pull the tabby things off my drink. So we're missing that on this one. All right, so I got that in there. So now I'm gonna start looking for the major little wrinkle lines. It looks like there's one that starts right about here, comes down. And then it leads right into here. And then we've got one over here. Okay, and at this point, as I start doing some more things, I'm gonna speed things up so it doesn't take as long to view. But I wanna talk about a couple of things before I do that, because you'll see me doing that in the video. At this point, most of the lines are light and sketchy. I may choose to make certain lines lighter or darker. That's called varying your line quality. So if you have a line that starts thin and then gradually gets thicker and then gradually goes thin again, that's a variation of line quality. It goes from light to dark. You want to stay away from this dark, light. You don't want those like jagged stops and starts. That's a little bit jarring to look at. So you want to try to create those gradual changes. So if you can create a drawing that has a variety of light lines and dark lines, sometimes that's more interesting to look at. So then the question is, which lines do you make darker and which lines do you make lighter? And different artists do different things for different reasons. So let me talk about some things that I've seen. So sometimes if you have an object, something like this is a little bit harder to do because it's so shiny, but if you have an object that's clearly more lit on one side and in shadow on the other, So let's say you had a sphere, or that's just an easy example. You've got the light coming from this side. An artist might choose to make these lines over here on this side a little bit darker, because this would be the side in shadow and this would be the side in light. And so even though it's just a line drawing, it's not shaded, it'll still give the illusion of light and shadow. So that's one example. Another example is if you have one line that overlaps another line, like this line is in front of this line. You may make this one a little bit darker to show that this one is over the other one. And then I've seen artists do, I would consider it a line of empathy. For example, if you have a drawing of a person and it's a person who's leaning all of their weight on one of their elbows, the artist might make the line underneath the elbow a little bit darker so that you feel empathy with the weight that's being held on that line. So those are all reasons that artists do that. So I'm going to go through and maybe choose which lines to darken up, which lines to keep lighter. A change of direction is also an area where someone might choose to make a darker line. I may keep some of the lines in the middle of the can that are details lighter because they're not quite as important. Also, you'll see that I will probably go in and add little bits of shapes like this bee. I might add a little bit of that actual shape, but some of these I'm just going to indicate. For example, there's a lot of writing over here. I'm not going to take the time to draw all of that writing, but what I may do is just kind of do some scribbles or just little lines that sort of indicate that there is something there without drawing it all out, and I'm keeping it really light. So I'm going to speed the time lapse up a little bit, and you can watch me as I add in some of these details. So at this point in time, I'm done with my observational sketch. So with this one and then the previous video that I did, it shows you different ways of drawing and observing an object using graphite. So we had our blind contour, our contour, and then our observational sketch.